How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world, Options Trading Academy, with a special broadcast. Y'all normally know I don't do morning broadcasts because I'm not a really big morning person. It's a lot for me just to get up and watch the market in the morning. But I went ahead to do a special broadcast because we're in a very, what I would call a special event cycle. And this is the first time that I've traded during any kind of what I would call conflict that's kind of on a worldwide level. So what I wanted to kind of do is cover this, allow people to give me their feedback, give them their feedback, and try to really put some people in a position to where they can put themselves in the best position to be successful. Because what I think we're going to see in the market is a lot of volatility. And I don't believe that the volatility is going to be short-lived. I believe that this is going to continue to remain because of the market being volatile before we already started. So that's pretty much what we're going to talk about. If you have any questions, you have any comments, hit them up in the comments because I want to try to go ahead and create a conversation. But really quickly, this particular show is sponsored by the highest paid online. And if you had taken this particular options trading course and you had applied it, you would understand right exactly how to play these type of situations. One of the reasons why we teach what we teach is because we want people to understand how to play both sides of the market, not just be, I'm waiting for the market to go green so I can make some money. Or I believe that every sell-off is a buying opportunity, which it may not be a buying opportunity. I want to put people in a position that regardless of where the market went, they understood how to navigate it where they could be profitable because they kind of understood how the market actually worked, right? And so that's what we teach in this particular course. But it is for people that are action takers, people that want to apply themselves, and people that actually want to get results from what they do. They're not looking for overnight success, and they're also not looking for somebody to feed them the answers to the test, right? The goal is to train you, to educate you, to allow you to put yourselves in a position where you can enter into these type of situations and you can start seeing the possibilities for you and your group to be profitable. So that's the link to the course. I want to encourage you to read, go through it, look at the testimonials, and decide whether or not the investment is worth the results that you want. Now let's go ahead and get into it. So what we've seen, right, over the past, I don't know, really the past few weeks, and we've been talking about this on multiple broadcasts of this issue with Russia, Ukraine, and NATO, where, you know, kind of the United States has to be the face of this conflict. And I had told people before, I didn't think anything was going to happen until after the Olympics. And one of the reasons is because Russia has a relationship with China, and I didn't think they wanted to spoil the Olympics for them, right? Because this definitely would have spoiled the Olympics, what's going on right now. So they did some basic movement, and then once the Olympics was over, they went ahead and made their moves. Now, let me tell you something that was very, very, that kind of speaks to how these type of operations are planned. I know some people on Twitter that are really savvy. They took the video that Putin did, I want to say yesterday, that was released yesterday, in which essentially he gave his argument for why he felt like they needed to destroy the Ukrainians' military ability. And when they pulled the metadata from that video, it showed that that video had been made on Monday of this week. So therefore, they already knew earlier this week that they were getting ready to go to war, which makes sense because any operation this big is going to be planned out. It's going to be premeditated. Therefore, all of this was premeditated. They knew they were going to do this. Now, the question you want to ask yourself as a trader is that, how do I think the market's going to react to this? Now, we saw the market was really red today. I'm sorry, it was really red last night. It opened up really red, and then it looks like it's starting to recover. I don't believe in the recovery. I believe the recovery is short covering, right? But we're going to see. One of the challenges with this scenario is that it started so late in the week. We don't know how the market's going to respond to the weekend because between Saturday and Sunday, anything can happen. I had an event that I was planning to go to this weekend in Dallas. I may not be able to make it because I may decide to trade through this volatility because there's a lot of opportunity in these type of markets. And I don't want to, I was going to leave tomorrow. I don't want to miss Friday and also Saturday because I could potentially trade futures on Saturday while this whole scenario is going on, because I think that the anxiety around the weekend could cause a lot more volatility. What I think we're seeing this morning, in my opinion, is a lot of short covering. I also think it's designed to entice people to buy with the idea that the market has already priced this in, but we don't know where this goes. And I'm going to kind of show you with this on the map, right? So that's what I want people to understand is that where is some of the opportunity that they think they see in the market, either on the overall indexes or in individualized companies. And you want to start asking yourself is that what areas of the market are going to be most impacted by this scenario? So we know that Russia is a major energy exporter, especially of natural gas, but also of oil, but especially of natural gas. How is that going to impact the overall market? So let me give you a heads up really quickly. If oil keeps going up, right, it's going to impact the airline industry, because the airline industry very much plays the futures market on oil or gas, whichever one you want to call it. I don't mean natural gas. I mean gas, like gas that they put inside the plane. So if the futures market for oil or for gas, and I mean gas, I'm talking about what they use to power cars with motors, becomes very volatile or starts to become very expensive, it can impact airlines directly. And so what I want to try to teach people how to do, and what I've always been trying to teach you, like Katrina said, gas like fuel. So I don't mean people like gas, like in Atlanta, we use gas to cook. I don't mean gas like that. Or gas to heat our house. I mean gas like fuel. So this is the goal, was to teach people to start to see these connections, because this whole world is connected. And one of the reasons why I think Putin feels like he can do what he's doing is because so many people are dependent upon the gas that Russia produces. You see, in America, we don't talk about Russia being a big gas producer because we don't use their gas like that. But in Western Europe, they're very much dependent upon gas from Russia. So I believe that Putin felt like I can get away with this because they need my gas. 50% of the gas that is consumed by Germany comes from Russia. However, the question you want to ask yourself is, where does this stop? And I'm going to kind of show you this on the map. So these are the questions that you want to ask yourself, right? What markets are going to be impacted by this, right? And do I think the impact is going to be? You got to get out of just the binary of what, everything's on sale, because there's some things that are going to be on sale for a reason. And it may be a very long time before they ever recover, because we don't know where this stops. And I'm going to kind of show you what I want to give an example. And I may go a little bit deeper into it this weekend, because I want to try to bring somebody on this weekend potentially to kind of go a little bit more in depth on this, because this volatility can put you in a position, right, to make a lot of money. And that's how I want you to see the markets. Is it unfortunate that people are going to die? Yes. Is it unfortunate that people are going to get hurt in this? Yes. But you got to realize this is how these people made this world. It got nothing to do with you. Right? They made this world behind this kind of activity. And I'm going to kind of talk about that, because I don't understand what Putin thinks he gets. I understand why he did it. But the question is, what does he think he gets out of this? And to be real with you, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I don't think this is about what his deal is. I think this guy's a distraction for what is coming next. And what I think is coming next is I think China's going ready to go take back Taiwan. And the challenge is that if China makes a play on Taiwan, the United States is not going to be able to do nothing about it because of our business relationships in Taiwan. So if China goes to take back Taiwan, the United States just got to sit out of the deal. Why? Because pretty much every major American company that has manufacturing has it in China. Therefore, we can't destroy those relationships, because China would just put those companies out of their country. They're not going to go for that. And I really think that's the real play. I think this is a distraction to get America and NATO preoccupied with this, and China backdoors into Taiwan. And it may not happen in 90 days. It may not happen in 120 days. But I think that's the real play. But they want to see, how do we respond to this to get us tied up with this? Because I don't see how Putin gets out of this based on the Russian economy. But let me show you what I'm talking about on the map, right? Let me go ahead and show you this map real quick. Because this situation in Eastern Europe has been going on a long time. This ain't nothing new. It's just they just starting to talk about it right now. Okay, so here's this particular map. There's Russia, there's Belarus, which essentially now is a vassal state of Russia. So Russia's they have regiments or troops, and I don't know how you pronounce this, and they're now moving into the Ukraine. Russia has already taken Crimea, however you pronounce that. All these are NATO states. So what Russia was tripping over, and I get, they didn't want Ukraine to become part of NATO, And then all of a sudden now, NATO puts weapons in Ukraine that are going to be used against Russia. So I understand him having an issue because we already got nuclear weapons in Turkey pointed at Russia back when we had the Cold War. So Russia's attitude is y'all trying to surround us on the West and on the South with weapons that's going to be used against us if there's ever a war, right? And we're not going for that. The problem is, where does he stop? Does he stop just by taking Ukraine? Or does he now go after these states right here? Right? And then the question is, if he defeats Ukraine from a military standpoint, then what happens after that? So, because his stated goal is we're going to just destroy Ukraine's ability to engage in war against us because he doesn't like that threat against his country. Okay, cool. Now what do you do after that? And so I think people believing that this is going to be a short-term issue. I don't think that this is going to be a short-term issue. I think this can be a long-term issue. Because what you saw in people that's old enough to remember, everybody that's old enough to remember the old Cold War, is that after the Allied forces won in World War II, what Stalin did was he took all of those, what we call satellite states, to protect themselves against invasion from the West, right? And then over time, as Russia started to fall, they lost all those satellite states. So essentially, they lost their buffer because, you know, they buffer to the east is essentially the ocean. The fact that it's really, really, really cold. Nobody wants to come in from the east, you know, because there's nothing there. It's all wasteland. So their attitude is we got to protect ourselves from the waste with all these buffer states. Over time, they lost them, right? As the Soviet Union started to fall, they lost all those buffer states. Then as these buffer states that they currently had start to join NATO, then their attitude is, well, we got all these guns pointed at us, right? And we don't like that. So that's the issue. But the other issue is this. Russia is a nuclear power. You can't go to war with a nuclear power. So where does this guy stop? Does he stop at Ukraine? Or does he say, now I want to go into the Nordic states. I want to go into Sweden and Denmark and that. I want to take the North too. And these are the kind of questions you got to ask yourself. And then because of his energy relationships in Western Europe, if you cut off their ability, if you cut all economic activity off of Russia, which is what they want to do the same way they was able to do to Venezuela, Western Europe suffers because where do you replace the energy from? Because they reached out to Qatar. Qatar said we can't meet that energy need. We don't have the ability to do it. So that's what people got to understand is that I don't think this is a short-lived situation. I think this is going to be a long-term situation because I don't understand what Putin is doing, but I just think he doesn't care anymore, right? I just think his attitude, and I think that a lot of these right-wing, quote-unquote, people that think they're conservatives don't understand who this guy really is. You don't become who he was in the KGB because you don't allow yourself to get brainwashed. Then what's interesting is that a lot of these people talk about Marxism and yada, 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 but they're championing a guy who was groomed by Marxists. This is the weirdest thing in the world to me, but I know a lot of people are really not that intelligent. They just talk a lot. So you get a guy who was groomed in a Marxist structure. He elevated himself in a Marxist structure. They reformed the government for whatever, really for economic reasons, not because they don't believe in that ideology anymore. It's just the economy was failing. He got into a position of power, but he was a byproduct of that particular system. So that's one of the reasons why they're cool with China, because they and China really have the same ideology, right? It's just they just run a little bit of a different system because the Russian economy failed because they got into an arms race with the United States. And that's what I don't think people really understand. I don't know why, and I'm not against the guy, but I don't know why they're promoting him at the same time be talking about critical race theory as Marxism. So are you against Marxism or are you for Marxism because you're supporting a Marxist? The reason why Trump liked the guy because Trump was getting financing from Russia. So he had to play nice with the guy because Putin could have cut off all his financing. So he had to kiss Putin's ass. That don't mean I got to kiss the guy's ass. But if you are a Trump flunky, I guess you feel like I got to like who Trump likes. But you don't even know why he even liked the guy. And that's what I want people to understand. is that this situation, I don't think is short term. So even though the market has rebounded, especially from where it looked like it was going to open up this morning, the market like it was going to tank this morning, it has rebounded. That could be short covering. That could be some inflows so the market won't totally tank. Because what we've seen over the past few weeks is the market to sell off around 1%, 1.5%. It'll recover a little bit. It'll sell off around 1.5%, 1%. We're not seeing what we saw in 2020 where we're losing 5 and 6% a day. They don't want to do that. They're slow selling this thing. The problem is, if you look at it over a 30-day period, the market will be down 25%. But it didn't happen in 1 week. It happened over 30 days. So if the market today ends down 2% or 1.5%, well, the market closed red yesterday too, right? Then we lose another 1% today. Then we lose another 1% on Friday. Then we open up on Monday. We lose another. So then we look at it over a 30-day period. We might be down 25% on the overall indexes. And that's what I want people to understand. This thing doesn't have to happen all at one time. I don't think they're doing that right now. I think they're slow selling this down. So that's what I want people to understand is this might not be over because Putin, I don't believe that he just wants to destroy Ukraine's ability to engage in warfare. I think he's thinking I got to take some territory and I got to create a buffer because the United States is going to try to do me the same way they did Venezuela. And what they did in Venezuela is they created economic sanctions. They did not allow Venezuela to engage in commerce with other countries. Venezuela has to do a lot of things to the black market because what they wanted the elites of Venezuela to do was to get rid of Maduro and to get rid of that ruling party. But that didn't happen. They're trying to do that now with Russia, but it may not work. And I just think Putin has accepted. I might just go out in a ball of flame with this thing. He's an older guy. I don't think he really cares how this ends up because I'm going to show you with charts. The Russian market is doing terrible. And the guy doesn't care. This doesn't help the Russian market, this war. It doesn't help them. And I don't think he cares. And I always thought the job of the president of a developed country was to protect the economy. I don't think this guy cares anymore. So the question is, what stops this from continuing to escalate? And like I said, I don't think it has to happen all in 1 week. This can turn into a long-term scenario that just keeps flaring up until we figure out what's going to stop this, right? And I'm going to kind of show you that in charts. So let's go to the next one. So here's the map. He may not stop with the Ukraine because he already took Crimea. When he took Crimea, they should have tried to do something about it. They didn't do anything. He got a Belarus as a vassal state. Essentially, Belarus is working for this guy, right? So they on Russia's team. So now he want to get the Ukraine, so that now he got a little bit of a shield against, a massive invasion because now either you got to go through these states to get to Russia or you got to come from the north, right? And so that's what this guy's trying to do because he's realizing that we're being boxed in. And Russia does not have the relationship with the United States that China does. We can't attack China. We got too much business with them. So if they go try to attack Taiwan, there's nothing we can do about it. And people say Taiwan has weapons. They do. Taiwan cannot defend themselves against China. They'll have to ask for help. And I don't know who's going to help them. Taiwan cannot defend it. If China decides that they're going to take Taiwan, Taiwan going to fall. It may take some time, but Taiwan does not have the military and probably definitely does not have the resources to get into a prolonged struggle with the Chinese, right? And I really think that's the real play. I don't think this is even the play. I just think this is something that they're just doing. I think they got Putin to do this to get the U.S. and NATO tied up into what this guy's doing because he doesn't care anymore. So they can now try to backdoor their way into Taiwan. And it may not happen this week. It may not happen in 6 months. It may happen in a year. But I think that's the real play, right? And so the United States got to figure out how they're going to deal with that. And also as a trader, you got to ask yourself, because if we have an issue with China, Apple's going to tank, Nike's going to tank, Tesla's going to tank, Walmart's going to tank. All these companies are going to tank because if we get into a big conflict with China, they'll push those companies right out of their country. They don't care. They're not going to go for any kind of dissent against their actions in the world. China don't play those kind of games. Putin will go back and forth with you. China don't do that. So let me show you this next chart, right? This is the RSX, and I showed this yesterday, right? So this is a holding of multiple Russian companies, right? This is the RSX. Look at it on the 1 year. Right? So this is 2020. It got back up to 3250. It's been selling down ever since. Right? So this economy is not doing great. Here's the ERUS. Right? Our shares, MSCI Russia ETF, ERUS, same thing. This thing's been selling off. So I don't know what Putin's doing because this economy that he's over is not great. Here's the MOEX Russia index. Here's an index. Look at this. This is the Russian stock market, essentially. So it topped out here and it's been selling down ever since. The last few days it's been tanking really, really hard. So the Russian markets are in very, very bad shape. And this guy just doesn't care. Right? Now, you are seeing people buy into it because their attitude is, well, we're going to buy. You know, everybody likes to try to buy the bottom. The question is, where is the bottom? Right? Where is the bottom with this deal? And that's what I want people to understand is that if you can start trying to figure out where the connections are in this volatility. So we're looking at other world markets. What countries are not as dependent upon oil or gas to run their economy? There are countries in this world that are not as dependent upon oil or gas to run their economy. What countries are those? That may be where the opportunity is at, right? We're now starting to see the demand for why we need alternative energy sources. Because when you have relationships with these countries and you need their energy, they will try to dictate to you how things are going to go. Why? Because you need our energy. Right? So what countries that we think in the world have fairly developed markets that don't need gas or don't need oil to run their economy? And then when you have those kind of answers, then you can try to figure out, okay, where do I think inflows might be? Right? And that's what I want people to understand. Now let's look at the overall markets. Let me pull that up real quick. Got a Yahoo stock. Okay, so S&P 500. So the NASDAQ recovered a lot. NASDAQ was down like 4% last night. Look at the S&P 500. Let's look at the 1 day. See, so it got down, and now it's starting to recover back up. So we down around 1% on the day. But let's look at the 5 day. See the 5 day? So like I said, we don't have to lose a lot every day. We can lose 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. This may fill this gap. And if it fills the gap, then we want to see what direction it goes. I don't ever expect anything to go straight down and straight up. You may have something fall down or sell off. And over the course of 30 days, you may have 7 days of green. But over a 30-day period, it could be negative. And so what we're seeing, let's look at the monthly of the S&P. This is the monthly chart on the 1 day. So we're seeing it hit that 4,600 and it's just been selling down since. Now you do have green days in the middle, right? Let's go to the 3 month. So the 3 month at 4,800 sold down, some green days, sold down again, came back up. Everybody said the market's rallying. We consolidated, sold back down. So you rarely get, unless you get a total collapse where the market sells all the way down or the market drives all the way up. But if we keep getting, let's go to the 1 year. So this is the 1 year, right? Let me go to the weekly candles. See, so on the 1 year, on the weekly, this is a red week, 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 this is a red week. We got 2 green weeks. We got a small green week here. So from 4750, and we're now at 4183. And I had 4200 as being the key number. We're already well under that. I had 40. I was going to come out this weekend and tell people, I was going to do a video. Tell people 4,200 is going to be the key number. That we're under that now. And so that's what I want people to understand. The market looks like, and it's trying to rebound. Let's go to the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is down 0.39. So the NASDAQ has recovered somewhat on the daily. So that's the daily, right? So we're almost filling this gap. Same thing, but look at the 5 day of the NASDAQ. So like I said, is we don't have to dump 6% every day. We can lose 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, and then you'll look up at 30 days and you'll be down 25% over the month, right? Unlike what we saw happen. So that's how you know we can be in a bearish market where none of the bullishness always gets sold back off. So you will have some bullish days, but then it gets sold back off. And you get some bullish days and it gets sold back off. Because when I saw some tickers open up today, I was like, man, this is terrible. But they recovered. But I think a lot of it is short covering. There's so much short activity in the market right now currently. I think shorts are covering, and then they're going to try to figure out, are we now going to go back in on short selling? We're going to go back in on puts. But they're taking their profit, and they're trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. I don't think this situation is over, though. And the issue with that, it being close to the weekend, you never know what's going to happen Saturday or Sunday. And then we go right back into it on Monday again. And I want to see how people react on Friday as we get closer to this weekend. Do they start becoming anxious? Yada, yada, yada. Because I don't think sanctions are going to stop this guy from doing what he's doing. I don't think he cares. And unless there's a Russian elite of business people that decide that this guy's bad for business, I don't think anything happens to this dude. And we don't know what their relations, because like I said, that's what they tried in Venezuela and it didn't work. The rich people of Venezuela just had to leave Venezuela and go do something else because they could not get Maduro out of power. So that's what I want people to look at. So I may do more of an in-depth video. I'm going to try to get somebody to come on with me Saturday to talk about the SPY, if that works. But we may go a little bit more in-depth on Saturday and get people to really understand where do we think the opportunity is at in this market. Because there's going to be a lot of opportunity because of the volatility. But I want to tell people, just because you see a short-term trend, I would not, in my opinion, assume that's where the market is going. Because we still got to roll into, I think, March 10th. We get CPI data, which is right around the corner. We also still got to roll into the next Fed talk, which is also in early March. So with all of this going on, we still got to roll into the Fed situation, and we still got to see what the next inflation number is going to be on top of this. So this mentality of just buying the dip, unless you're buying like really well-established companies, which is to me what you should be buying anyway. I wouldn't look to buy companies real cheap, trying to find like the gems, unless you're buying like companies that are already established. Like Apple, I hope Apple falls to $50. Right? But it probably won't. But, you know, I seen a guy saying that, you know, Palantir is going to go down to $5. You should buy it. If Palantir goes to $5, you probably should wait for them to have an earnings, in my opinion, before you start buying that. So I would be wary of a lot of these really cheap companies that are very speculative, thinking I'm buying in at the bottom. We don't know where the bottom's at yet. And like I said, if this rolls over to China, it's going to cause a lot of issues. And I really think that's what the play is. I don't think this is really the play. I think Putin is just doing this just to be doing it. And I understand why he's doing it. We would not allow China to put weapons in Mexico. We go to war behind that. So I understand what he's doing. The question is, where does he stop? And so those are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself, right? There's a lot of opportunity in this market. There's a lot. I still have plays in this market. Wayfair did earnings this morning. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Was it Wayfair? So Wayfair did earnings this morning. It was negative. They came out really, really bad. I think they opened at 100 this morning. Let me see where their chart was at. Right now, I already exited one Wayfair put, but I'm still in some more, right? So they opened here around 100. They got bought into, and now they're around, 118, right? I think they continue to sell off because here's their yearly chart. Right? So this one, let's say even Wayfair was a closed green today. It don't change the trend, right? Wayfair was at 275 in November, right? They're right now trading at 119, right? Carvana has earnings this afternoon. Zoom got earnings in the Monday. This is not a time to have a bad earnings print because of the way the market is selling. Right? It's just not the era to have a bad earnings print. So they opened really, really low. Let's go to the 5-day. They opened really low. Let me get off this 5-minute. Let me go to the 1 hour. They opened really low today, right? And then they recovered a little bit. but the potential for them to continue to sell off, they're down 2% on the day at 11:04. The potential for them to continue to sell off is very much there because their earnings isn't great, right? So that's what I want people to understand is that I don't think this is a time to buy Wayfair. I would wait to see how do they report over the next week. Let me show you something else. So they're green, right? But if you look at their yearly chart, this is their yearly chart on the daily, right? So we're talking about at one time they were 400, and they just sold all the way down. So yeah, they're green. So they've had green days in the midst of this. But if we look at them over the course of the yearly chart, they just been selling down, gap down, sold down, gap down, keep selling down. It just won't stop selling. So they may close green today, right? And I think that'll be because of short covering. It won't matter. They got a report on Monday. And if the report isn't stellar, it can be very detrimental to them. So you may see a lot of volatility on this ticker tomorrow because of people positioning themselves. And a lot of times when you get closer to earnings date, a lot of options becomes very volatile. So I don't want people to get baited into this individual companies looking decent today because we see the overall market is still red. The NASDAQ is not as red as the other indexes, but the NASDAQ has been very, very much beaten down. So it may be starting to stabilize a little bit. But like I said, we go into this weekend. Look at crude oil, right? And crude oil don't even move fast like this, right? So crude oil is moving up, right? And it's sold down from 100, so 100 being the resistance. So the question is, what gets it back to this 100? So it's 97.33 on the day. And it's sold off. So that's the thing is that I wouldn't let like a short-term bullish activity throw me off. I would sit back and observe. And if you have the ability, I would play the volatility. But I just think for any company that has any negative news, this is probably going to be the worst time to report any negative news because it's going to get compounded by the fact that the market is already red. There's a lot of anxiety in the market. And I don't think people are going to want to take chances on a company that may not be reporting well in this particular market, right? So we got any questions before we get up on out of here? Because I think I got another live stream later today. So she says CNC got great issue. Airline semiconductors, autos. Okay, I'm gonna check that out, Katrina. Calling real estate stories, what's going on? So the question is, ask yourself. Let me write this right here. Yeah, I forgot. Let me ask you something. I forgot one thing too. Let me put this in here. Okay, so ask yourself, what country would benefit from the energy crisis? Let me go into the VIX real quick. I forgot about that. Okay, so the VIX is 34. So heads up, and I was going to put this in my Discord before I decided to do this live. So look at the VIX on the 5-day. So we see a gap up, massive gap, then it's sold down. Okay, so now what do we know because we understand the VIX, right? Let me get rid of this real quick. Options premiums are not going to be elevated. So if you're buying now, and this is not investment advice, I'm not an investment advisor. If you're buying now, so I'm not even going to say you, I'm going to say me. If I was buying options today, tomorrow, maybe even Saturday, I would be looking for intraday or short-term trades. Why? Because the VIX is very elevated. The VIX opened up today at what? Almost 36, right? So the VIX opened up today at 36.72. It's sold down some. It may get all the way back down here, but that's the issue. So the VIX right now is at 34.18. It's up 10%. So let's say I were to buy contracts here. I would be looking to get out today or in a relatively short amount of time. Why? Because I'm buying at high implied volatility. So this lets me know that even though I'm seeing certain companies being red, certain companies going green, I'm seeing that the indexes have kind of recovered a little bit. There's still a lot of anxiety in the market just based on the VIX being up 10%, right? So as a result, it's going to impact options premiums. Therefore, if I was buying in now, I would be looking to try to get out short amount of time today, maybe tomorrow, or I would believe that what I was buying into would continue to fall apart at a very rapid pace. What I would not want is for me to buy into something and it starts to consolidate, because what it means is that I bought in at a high volatility, but then the volatility started to soften, because based on the VIX, we're in a very volatile scenario. And that's what I want people to understand. A lot of people are going to be looking at the indexes and being like, oh, where they're recovering. But the VIX is telling us that we're at high volatility, right? That's what it's telling us we're at. And that's what I want people to really understand is you got to kind of look at the market for what it is, not necessarily what you want it to be. And this is why I try to help people understand how to do more than just buy the dip. Because there's a potential that you could buy the dip today and it just keeps on dipping. Now, if you're in it for 20 years and you don't worry about it. But if you were in it for 20 years, you wouldn't be watching market-based videos every day and worrying about the stock price on the daily, right? So this could be a good buying time for certain companies. Other companies, it's still overpriced. It probably needs to take off another 20%. And that's what I want people to understand. Look at that VIX before you start looking. I would look at the VIX before I started looking at certain companies and determine what is my time horizon to get in and out. And if I couldn't figure that out, I would be worried, because you're buying into a high volatility situation just based on what the VIX is telling us. Let me show you another one. So the UVXY is at 19, right? That's 1990. And so that gapped up on the open today. You see where it was at the past few days? Let's go to the 1 month. See, so we had a big gap up on the UVXY. So these are the things I'll be looking at, not just looking at the NASDAQ being 0.13, because the NASDAQ has gotten beat down really hard. The Russell 2000, they're looking like they're starting to recover, but that VIX is still really, really high. So what it means is that there's still a lot of anxiety in this market. And so you're going to have to pay the price for that particular anxiety if you look to get in. And so if I was looking to get in, I would already know what is my time frame to get out, right? Because if you buy in now at this high volatility and the place starts to consolidate, and let's say you got a 2-week contract, you can get stuck in that contract. Even if you get the movement you want, if it's not with a lot of volatility, you can end up losing a lot on your premiums. And that's really what you want to understand, because we're in a very volatile scenario just based on what the VIX is. So I don't care that the NASDAQ, the Dow, the NASDAQ is green now. The NASDAQ, the Dow, and the Russell are not that red. I'm looking at the VIX. It's going to determine the price I got to pay for my contracts, right? And until that VIX starts to go down to at least what it was yesterday, and yesterday the market closed red, till that VIX starts to go down, that got to be my perception. So I would be looking at shorter term trades, right? I would not be looking at anything unless I'm looking at leaps. I would look at anything, because I know I was getting ready to exit this trade this morning, but I got so much data on it, I didn't worry about it. I was getting ready to get out of this morning, right? This opened pretty almost under my strike price, right? And it still hasn't really recovered. So let's look at the 5-day. See, so it opened pretty much under my strike. I was getting ready to get out of this morning if it would have kept falling, but it started to recover. I got so much data on this contract, I don't have to worry about it right now. but this hasn't really recovered. Now, I don't know why cruise lines are down, but the whole overall market's down. So we're seeing the NASDAQ at 0.10, right? Dow's still down, which I get. Russell's still down 0.5. S&P's down 0.69. So that's what I want people to understand. Don't get thrown off by, oh, the NASDAQ is starting to recover. VIX is still really elevated, which means there's a lot of anxiety in this market. This thing happened at the worst time of the week. If this would have happened at Monday, I think the market would have dealt with it a lot better because we know we would have 5 days to deal with it. There's no telling what's going to happen over the weekend with this guy, right? There's no telling. And therefore, that's what I want people to understand is that there's a lot of volatility in this market, but there's also a lot of opportunity if you just know how to play it. So we got any questions before we get up on out of here? So Geechee Dan says he rated SOXS. I feel you. I saw that yesterday. Thanks for that tip on that. There's so many different like reverse and double leverage indexes that I don't even know about. Yeah, definitely. Right? You gotta look at that IV and that VIX, because especially if you're looking at the downside of the market, but even sometimes the upside of the market, and that VIX is really going to determine what you're going to pay for contracts. So you got to always factor that in. It also tells you how much anxiety is in the market. So even though the market may be looking green, it still can be a lot of anxiety, because what you got to be worried about is if the market is moving up bullish, but the VIX is still high, that may mean something is right around the corner, because the traders are factoring in something that's making the VIX go up. But most people don't even look at the VIX. They just go by what the major all indexes are telling them, and that's cool. But anytime everybody's bullish, but the VIX is also going up, it means something's going on. Because why is there so much anxiety in the market, even though everybody's so bullish? So Urban Home said, they say you're gonna sit this out. Ain't no wrong with that. Ain't no wrong with sitting it out. Yeah, that's another thing. Defense companies. That's another thing. I forgot about that. Right? Gas benefit. Yeah, certain OPEC nations. So if there's a, what we got to ask is OPEC going to produce? Well, you're right about that, because even if they don't produce more oil, the price of oil goes up. So you're 100% correct. OPEC nations do benefit. You're 100% correct on that. I'm not sure if China stationed nations. I know China put, they had naval ships off the coast of Venezuela a few years ago. Okay, so it takes 2 years to build semiconductor facilities. The reason why U.S. moved labor in the U.S. even higher now. I feel you. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's the guy that got Jay-Z to work for him. He worth like $40 billion, which is like just amazing that you could be worth that much money. Yeah, we got to see shavers. So that's the issue. Because if oil is high, it's going to create an inflationary effect. And then can he raise the rate? Right? That's the issue. Or if people just stop buying because they're worried about the war, that could soften inflation. Then he don't have to raise the rate. So like I said, this happened at the worst time. I don't know why they did it right now. But I guess Putin's attitude is I'm going to do it when I feel like I'm going to do it. Because this has been building up. This situation has been going on since Obama was president. It just finally got to this level. So we got to see what they do next month. See what that CPI number comes out at. I don't think it's going to come out low, because gas is high. Gas is high as I don't know what. So Erica says a Russian elite put out in 2014. Okay. So he might be out there all by himself. So he don't care if the economy just tanks. Sanctions won't work. I don't know what's going to work then, because you can't go to war with somebody that got nuclear weapons, right? You just can't. It's not going. You can't do anything else. You can't invade Russia. Like that won't work. Like that'll be. I mean, that'll be it for everybody. He's sure not going to go for that. Yeah, I think it will be too. I think it will be too, because we don't know what's going to happen on the weekend. Because if this thing with Ukraine, if Ukraine doesn't fall fast, and it turns into a prolonged scenario, it's not going to look good. Right now, especially in this era of social media and everything being on the internet, it's not going to look good. Right. So I don't know how to get around that. So the goal really is to get Ukraine to fall fast. If they don't, and it turns into like an insurgent war, it's not going to look good. Right? It's not going to look good at all. Yeah. Yeah, normally you get, from my understanding, is shale oil normally becomes a thing when the price for oil goes up because of the amount of money it takes to actually be, I won't have to say the proper term, be successful at shale oil, right? There's a lot of CapEx costs involved with it. So I think if the price of oil becomes even higher and there's a more demand, shale oil might become a thing again. Because that's real big down here in Texas. One of the guys that financed Prager University made billions of dollars in shale oil. Yeah, that's true. That is true. I read the same thing. Yeah, you told me. I didn't think it was going to happen. So you right. You told me about it. You texted me. I was like, they're not going to go to war. But from what we saw, he'd been planning this for a very long time. Because the way in which he moved, you don't move like that if you haven't been planning it, right? So, because, last night, they were hitting certain things all at the same time, which means they planned it. Well, we knew they planned it once they did the cyber attack. So they did the cyber attack first to take communications down, and then they hit all these particular parts of Ukraine, all that. He had amphibious units out there, everybody. So he had been planning this for a very long time. He knew this is what he was going to do. I didn't think he was going to do it because I didn't understand. I'm like, dude, you're going to destroy your own stock market. But I guess he don't care. Putin feel like he got a point that he going to prove, and it is what it is. I don't run a country, so I don't know what I would do in this situation. Be careful out there, man. It's real volatile. Because like I said, I think this bullishness is not legit. Even if it lasts 2 days, I don't think it's legit. I want to see how the market opens on Monday. I think that's going to tell a lot. And even if the market opens a certain way on Monday, I want to see how this thing continues to unfold. Because like I said, that if Ukraine doesn't fall fast and it becomes a long-term war, it's not going to be good for anybody. Because they're going to have to try to do more and more sanctions against the guy, which impacts everybody that needs their energy. Because Germany already canceled one of the little gas deals they got with Russia. Yeah, that's true. Like I said, when he took Crimea, we should have did something about it then. So he's trying to create a buffer around Russia, which I get, but who knows? So Mercedes, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll be over, but we won't be able to do anything about it anyway if they do it. Right? We can know in the world we can go to war with China. We got too much business with them. That's the downside of having so much of our manufacturing in that part of the world. We can't do anything with those guys. Yeah. They like that gas. I lived in Atlanta. I never used gas till I moved there. In Florida, everything's electrical. It's cheaper though, but you end up paying. You got to pay 2 bills. Yeah, definitely. So we know about, I think it's TSM. If they get attacked, they'll probably tank real bad until we get some stability over there. Yeah, I don't think they destroy the American Pacific Fleet. Right? Because I think if they invade Taiwan, I don't think we can do anything about it. I just don't think we can do anything. I think we just got to sit back and watch it. Mr. Nix, you may be 100% correct. So that might be it. Cruise lines being a heavy consumer. I didn't think about that. I'm just thinking about their debt position. But you're right. So that's what I'm saying. That's a good tip. Thank you. So you gave me $2, but you put me in position to probably make some more money because I ain't even think about that. Right? So they probably is a heavy consumer of oil. I didn't even think about that. I'm thinking about airlines. I ain't thinking about cruises. Where's the resistance at? Because is it XLE? Let me look at XLE real quick. I know some people that was trying to play XLE, but they told me that resistance point is like 70. Okay, let's go back to this. Now, I don't know if this is oil or this is energy. So I don't know. I haven't looked at the holdings yet. So this is the only one I really looked at. So we're seeing that there's a lot of resistance around that $70 mark. So I don't know if you do technical analysis. I would look at the chart or whatever I'm thinking about trading and trying to figure out where's this historical resistance, right? And do I believe it can break past that historical resistance for any reason? But that's what I would really chart it out first. I don't know what's in these particular holdings. Let me look at the holdings real quick. You know, so these are Exxon, Chevron. So I don't know which ETF you're looking at playing, but I would most definitely chart it out and try to figure out what is the historical resistance. Because what we're seeing with this one is somebody had told me that wanted to play this, that it keeps topping out at 70. And we're seeing that it keeps rejecting 70 for some reason. But if this situation stays prolonged enough and we get enough of a demand on energy and people start trying to move the oil, or the oil market starts getting curtailed, it eventually probably will move up. Or you're looking at an ETF. So I don't know about Brent crude, things of that nature. We're just single individualized, or maybe just individualized companies. So maybe it might not be, you may not be able to find the action that you want to find in the ETF. You may be able to find it in the individualized company, even though I know people like to play, you know, funds and things of that nature. So I just will, but the first I will look for is I would chart it out and look for any kind of historical resistance, right? Unless you have the specific ETF you're talking about, and let me know if we can just look at it live. But first thing I would do is I would chart it out and try to figure out where's my historical resistance at, right? And then what do I think was going on in the world at that particular time to where it hit that resistance point and it wouldn't continue to move up past it, right? Because what we can also get is also profit taking, where people's attitude is that it's so volatile, I don't want to be in it. I'll take my profit and leave and wait for it to become a little bit more stable. Because everybody don't like to trade situations like this that are really heavily volatile. I do, but some people just would rather take their profit and get out of the way, which I understand. So if you get that, hit me up in the chat. Let me know what ticker. We can just go ahead and run it up real quick and put it on the screen and try to see, can we find a resistance point? Yeah, so they claim they're going to start doing deals with Iran. In fact, I forgot where I saw that article at, which is weird because I thought Iran was our enemy. Yeah, that's something I try to tell people all the time, but they don't understand it because most people don't understand short selling. So because they don't understand short selling, they don't understand a covering. So you can see bullish activity because they're just covering their position. And then what they do is they cover and they short it back again. Right? And that's what we could see now is we could see some recovery on the indexes because it was so, the put positions were so massive that a lot of people's attitude is I'm going to just cover now because I made so much money because we've seen a lot of these indexes have been falling the past 5 days. And then we'll start a new short position. Right? And so you never know how this is going to work. Yeah, pretty much all the contracts are going to be higher because of the VIX. Right? And also it depends on that individualized ticker and how the market makers are pricing it. But normally if the VIX is elevated, option prices are going to go up. But if it's elite, it could be worth it if you believe you're going to just continue to get a collapse in the company. So if I believe that Royal Caribbean is going to keep falling, it may be worth it to me to pay the higher volatility. So we're now at, I forgot what price point we're at. Let me go back to it, RCL. We're now at 78. So let's say I buy a $78 put that goes out a year. It may be worth it if I believe that every earnings gets worse and worse. It could be worth it. Right? If I believe that every earnings just gets worse and worse for them. right? Because what I see with them is that there's a lot of resistance around $90 and $95 for them. So if I believe that every earnings for Royal Caribbean just gets worse and worse, and I believe that eventually they're going to start trading under $50, it may be worth it for me to buy right now at this higher implied volatility that I'm gonna have to pay to get into the door. But if I don't believe that, then I probably wouldn't buy it. Right? But what we're seeing is that in the mid 90s is where they're topping out. Because they got to show their market, I think their highest activities in the summer. They got to show that they can recover for the summer season. If those numbers in the summer don't look good, along with their debt, and then just like Mr. Mark said, along with this high oil price, it could just be a lot of issues for them. But I think that raising of the interest rate was going to be detrimental to them. But we might not be able to raise the interest rate the way this economy is looking, right? Because I don't think they can raise the rate and have us paying more money for oil. Yeah, maybe. I just don't see how this goes well for them long term, because he's destroying their market, right? So we're going to have what Russia was before the revolution, where you have a small group of really, really rich people, and the average Russian don't have 2 cents to rub together. Yeah, you might be right. You might be right. So then if they do TW1, everybody's going to say that the bankers started this war, right, to continue to keep us all in debt. Right? Because we know as they continue to, so that's going to be the play. So if they do keep the rate low and keep the easing and don't stop the bond buying, the narrative is going to be now is that this war was started by the international bankers, because you got people that believe the international bankers start every war anyway. So we got to see how this plays out, because I don't think if oil's really high, really elevated, I don't think they can raise the rate. I don't think they can, but they may have to. So next target will be Warsaw if he wins this war quickly. Let's see how it goes. That's in Poland, right? Yeah. See, I don't know. Is Poland in NATO? Because I don't think he can attack NATO countries. If he does that, man, I just think this, it's over for everybody. We ain't got to worry about it anymore. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Ukraine was known for a lot of corruption, right? So we don't even know how fit their actual military is, because they was known for like massive corruption in that government. So we don't even know how fit the actual military is, what's their commitment, how well financed they are, what's their like what you call it, like their morale. Because if Russia goes in there, just really starts hammering on those dudes real hard, and they really not in it to win it, they may just pack it up and be like, hey man, it's not worth it. So, based on the scenario in that country, we don't know if they up to fighting an insurgent war, right? Are they up to that? Do they want to go live in the mountains and just fight a war of attrition with Russia? Are they willing to just say, you know what, y'all can have this, and we'll just, deal with Russian, we'll allow Russia to run our country, because it won't be the first time that happened anyway. Appreciate it, Katrina. And I appreciate you applying everything you've learned so you can be successful. I really appreciate that also. Yeah. So we saw that. And I showed Jabraz, if you look on my community wall, they got another pipeline going to China. So what I heard is that they can offset their Western gas being cut with the deal they got through the back door through China. So they got to, I didn't even realize, because, I don't care about what goes on in that part of the world. I never realized really how massive Russia is, because I don't understand why anybody would want to live anywhere that cold. Like, it's just, the coldness is on another level. But they got a pipeline coming east out of Russia that goes directly into China. And what people have told me is based on the capacity of that pipeline, it can offset a lot of what they would lose from everything being cut off on the West. So like I said before, I think they've been planning this, right? They've been planning this move, because I said, and I've been telling people for years, you don't become who Putin is in the KGB if you are not ideologically a Marxist. And I just think people don't get that because they just say this type of stuff on the internet. And like, it's like you don't move up in the CIA if you don't have certain type of ideology about America. Like, to me, if America's not your God, you only gonna get so far in the CIA. You got to be a slave to the institution. Can't be about anything else. So I just don't understand why people thought he was in their secret service. He had a position in their secret service. And now all of a sudden now he's this capitalist. Like, that's not how these people think, bro. In my opinion. Yeah, Urban Homesteader. Let me put up the banner real quick. I appreciate it. It's David Weswill. That's the Cash App. And I appreciate all the Cash Apps. I use my Cash Apps to buy crypto. Because the best thing about this market is crypto's falling. Not this when I get this. So now I'm buying the dip on crypto. I'm buying the dip on crypto because I missed the last time. I'm not missing it this time. I'm not going to make that mistake twice. So UCO, let me look at that real quick. Okay, so UCO, appreciate it, Mr. Nixon, $5. Let me look at UCO real quick. Yeah, I ain't gonna miss the dip on crypto this time. I missed it last time. I missed crypto at $200. That ain't never gonna happen again. So I got an alert on my phone every time crypto dumps under a certain number. I'm buying. I don't care. And what I love about crypto, you can buy fractional. That's not investment advice. Let's go to the 1 year. What I love about crypto, you can buy fractional. Let me go to the weekly. Let me go to the 2 year. Dun, dun, dun. Let me go to the 5 year. Dun, dun, dun. Where is this at? Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Make sure we're on the right ticker. Okay, so ProShares, Ultra Bloom, Crude Oil. Okay, let me look at the holdings real quick. I know I'm taking a long time. Okay, is this futures? Okay, dun, dun, dun. Okay. So let's go to the 1 year. Let me go to the weekly. Okay, so I know what they're doing. Go to the 6 months. Where we are right now today? 133. Okay, so that 140 being a resistance. 1 month, 140 being a resistance. 40 being a resistance. Being a resistance. Okay, so what's your name again? Mr. Nix, I believe. Okay, so Mr. Nix, why did it sell off? Why do we think it's driving off to 140? So why do we think make sure I got the number right before I type it. So why do we think this 140 is such a resistance point? Because we see that it gapped up, takes 224. It gapped up this morning off the 140 and it just sold off, right? So let's look at the 5-day. So we see gap up, selling, what's 222, gap up again. It sells off, really gaps up hard because we know the situation going on in the world, and it sells back down. So why do we think the 140 is a resistance point? And if, let's say, in my opinion, if I was to play this, I would observe this the rest of the day to see, one, does it close this gap? And then I would try to determine what is my time. I know you said a few weeks. Do I think that 140 is going to maintain to be a resistance? Because what we see is an open 140 and it started to sell off, right? But I'm seeing that same behavior over multiple days. So is it the type of ticker to where it opens really strong and sells the rest of the day? Because then I maybe will look to, I'm not telling you investment advice, I would maybe look to trade it on a shorter time span because that's its behavior. Some tickers do that. Some tickers open strong, sell off, some tippers open weak and move up. But what I'm seeing is a lot of gapping. For whatever reason, I don't really know this chart. I don't know this ticker that well. And then it's selling off over the course of the day. And that's something I would be worried about if you're looking to buy going out a few weeks, because what you would need is continuation past that 140, even past that 135. So if I was looking at it, that's what I would be looking for. So what I would try to figure out is where do I think, right, it's going over the next few weeks. But why do I think this 140 was a resistance? Why do I think this, even this like 127 was a resistance? Why was this 128 a resistance? Like I said, it could just be of the actual market that we're currently in. But based on what we're currently going through right now, when it opened up today, why do I think it moved off that 140 so hard? It just kept selling down. And now it's starting to consolidate and it's starting to not dip again on the daily. Let me look at the 5 minute. Does it even show? Okay, there we go. That's what I'll be asking myself. Because we're seeing a big gap and then people either taking profit or nobody wanted at this price. Which is weird, but I don't know the energy market like that to know how people trade energy. But those are the questions I'll be asking myself, especially if I was looking to do a longer term trade. Because what I'll be wary of is that I buy at a particular price point and the market doesn't want it at that price point, because I would think in this particular market, especially with the demand, with the perceived demand and the volatility, we would get a lot more upward movement. But this also could be the fact that people just taking profit and trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. So the question I would ask again is that, what is the 140? Now, if you see something on the MACD, I don't look at the MACD. I know Lance does. I don't do it the MACD at all. I deal with VWAP, right? I look at VWAP, I also look at moving averages, right? And I know MACD may implement some of that in there. But I normally look at a daily, not a daily moving average. I normally look at like a 23, sometimes 24-day moving average. Definitely look at the 200. Definitely look at the 50. And I look at VWAP like a mug. I'm a big VWAP person. I learned that from Mecca. Not a big MACD person like that. But everybody got their own thing that they look at. But I would really ask myself why that 140 was such a big resistance on the daily, especially in this current market right now. Because I would think energy just would be going crazy. But it may, like I said, it may be a staggered scenario where once people absorb all the information and they realize, because people may believe Ukraine's going to fall in 2 days. And once they realize that Ukraine won't fall in 2 days, then there may be another reaction. That's why I say I think this weekend is going to be a big deal. Because people may just think Ukraine's they're going to just fold up, which is what Putin was trying to do. I think he's trying to hit them so hard early that they just pack it up. They may not pack it up, right? Then how does the market respond to that? Because I would assume, to me, I think the energy market should just be going crazy right now. Because Russia is such a massive oil exporter. No, I'm sorry. They're such a massive gas exporter. I would think they would be going crazy right now. Because essentially they give Germany half of their gas. That's a lot to lose behind this particular scenario. And that's why I don't know what they do with this dude. But that's a great question. If I haven't answered it, you ain't got to super chat me anymore. Just hit me back again with another question if I haven't answered that question properly. But I appreciate you asking the question, though. And I appreciate the super chat. But this is the thing, Mr. Jabrass. Where does the what generates the electricity? That's what I meant to ask. So Tesla's, their unique mechanism is that everything's EV. What generates the electricity that they're using to power the EV car? Okay, thanks for Patricia. I was trying to find the time. So he's speaking in a little bit. Okay. I don't know what he's going to say, except we're going to do some more sanctions, which I don't think that's going to work. But, I don't think Putin cares anymore. I think he ought to prove a point. Yeah, we got to see cruise lines. They're registered out of the country, so I don't think they're gonna get the support. Airlines will though, but the cruise lines, I think either Royal or Carnival, I think one of them are registered in Liberia, right? And if they don't have the institutional support, they'll do the same thing what happened to them during the pandemic. They're just gonna sell off. It's probably the volatility, because the perfect short was square. And let me show you that square chart. I don't know what I was looking at. I didn't see this. And I usually try to watch everything, but you can't watch but so much. I'm going to show you square. And I had looked at square too. I just didn't believe it would fall because I use Cash App all the time. It's like, this is one of the best apps ever. Look at that. Look at that. 281 in, what date was this? In August. And then we also got 263. And what date is that? Was that September, October? October. So 253. And now it's trading at $88. This is the perfect short. Leap puts on this just would have been amazing because this thing just sold. It just nobody's coming in to buy this thing. Even today, it's recovered a little bit, but nobody's coming in to buy it. I don't know why not, but nobody's coming in to buy this. So this is why I try to all this buy the dip. The buy the dip buyers are getting played in this deal. Because under 200, nobody came in to buy it. Under 175, nobody came in to buy it. Right? So now we're getting ready to go under 100, and we still having a hard time finding buyers. And that's why I tell people, you really got to know what you're buying, because some things are cheap for a reason. There's an old joke that we used to tell people in basketball, right? To where if you're open, it's the reason why you're open. Because sometimes we're not going to guard you because we don't believe you can score. So I'm not a fan of something's cheap. That means buy it. That's how consumers think. As a trader, you got to ask yourself, why is it cheap? It might be cheap for a reason. So if it's cheap because it's a fundamentally bad company, it's going to continue to get cheaper, which means we can make money on put contracts. But it don't mean because it's cheap, buy it. Because if you bought here, you're very underwater on the play. In fact, you're going to be damn near 100%. Well, you're really already 100% underwater if you bought at $200. So now the question is, you got to get all that recovery now just to get even again on the play. When do they report earnings again? February 24th. So they report today. They may report after the market closes. So it could even get worse for them if they report today and it don't look stellar, right? But I don't know why, because I be on I be on Cash App all the time. I don't know why, but people just didn't believe. This is one of those companies that ran up because of the pandemic. So now they're losing everything. See how that's like a hill. So this is pre-pandemic price. Well, pre-pandemic price was around $67. They sold down. They ran back up. People came in and bought the dip. And then this is the perfect short right here. And I use like FinViz. And for some reason, I must be using it wrong. I'm going to do a FinViz video today, later this afternoon. But I'm doing something wrong with FinViz because I'm not seeing this type of stuff. So I'm missing something. Because this is a perfect play. This thing's selling down like this. It just never recovered, ever. And especially the way, as bad as January was on the market, you get from 141 down to 100 real fast. But this thing sold down from 250. So it could be the volatility, could be the reason. Because this thing is just doing really bad right now. You know, nobody wants this at any price. You know, 0.25, some people said that too. Right? But then they say it's going to be multiple rates raises over the year. We need a 0.50 raise, but the way this market looks, I don't see it happening. We need a 0.50 raise, but I don't know. This is the weirdest thing I've seen in my life. This is the worst time in the world to have what they got going on right now. And we have some bad areas in America. Black people, black men between 19 and I think 21, 22, and also 22 to 44. Number one cause of death is still homicide. But even with that said, we don't have anything as bad as somebody's going to attack us and start bombing our country. Like, to have to live like that is a lot, right? That's a lot to have to live like that. So it's just unfortunate that you still got parts of the world where they have this type of conflict to where people got to live like that. And that's why I try to tell these people on the YouTube talking about, I don't want to live around people that look like me. I say, y'all need to go to Eastern Europe, man, because I don't think you realize, because you have an American mentality, how bad some fair-skinned people have to live. Like, it's no joke over there. I know people that have actually been over there in the military. They'll tell you it's no joke over there. You got people living outside in like huts and stuff, because that's just how it is. Yes, I don't think he can invade Warsaw, but he might say to hell with everything, man. I feel you. So Russia told their military leaders to go home because it's a wrap. I feel you. Yeah, Chastity. I just think there's nothing wrong with playing short term, but I think a lot of times people wait for somebody else to tell them to play it, and a lot of times by that time it's too late. I would always have my own way of analyzing, and that's what I try to help people. I know you try to help people do the same thing, is to have your own way of analyzing what direction you think the market is going, because a lot of times if you try to get in where everybody else is getting in, unless there's some more part of that trend left, it might not work. It might not work because, but it is what it is. Yeah, the word I'm getting is that Ukraine's government is not very effective. And so that's causing a lot of the instability. Because you got Ukraine separatists that are on the side of Russia, and they don't like the Ukrainian government, and I can understand that. So it's just a crazy situation. That's why I was trying to tell people, everybody that think fair-skinned people got the best life in the world, I tell you, you need to go to Eastern Europe. It's not great over there. It's just really not. It's a very rough part of the world to have to live in. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, let's see how it goes. Yeah, I didn't think, but see, I know the relationship that they have with each other. And I think their relationship is understated, because I understand Mao was a fanboy of Stalin, right? And they even have writings around that, like, the code of personality that Stalin was able to create, yada, yada, yada. Like, they learned from that dude, even though Stalin didn't respect them because they was Asians, right? However, they are, from an ideological standpoint, they got a lot in common. And I just think people don't understand that because they don't really understand what kind of people that they're really dealing with. So I didn't think they was going to make China look bad during the Olympics because China wanted to look good during the Olympics. So I was like, they're not going to invade until after the Olympics if they do it. But I didn't think he was going to go this far with it. But obviously, this is what he wanted to do the whole time. Yeah, Katrina, but I was in puts 2 months ago. So the goal now is not to be greedy with it, right? Because I didn't see this war coming, but everything else, I knew they was going to do this stuff. Because what they're doing is they're taking the air out of everything. And if you look at this square chart, this thing was pumped up. It was inflated. So what do they do now? Just take the air out of it. So what we're seeing is that everything's kind of going back to a baseline again of the market. Because over the past 2 years, the market just got super inflated. And what they're doing is they're going to baseline it again, and then they're going to walk it up. But I think they're going to walk it up a lot more gradual than what it had done during the pandemic. Because we saw after the pandemic, everything just ran up. We had the fastest recovery in the history of the world and the history of the U.S. stock market. So they're going to take the air out of everything and then probably walk it back up slow again. Yeah, Urban is David Weswill. So DavidWeswill at David Weswill. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So this is all futures. And people said I need to trade futures. In fact, I may get into trading futures this weekend. I might have to get good. I have to break out the futures account because I can trade futures pretty much 24 hours a day. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Bitcoin. I'm not trying to do anything fancy. Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. To me, I'm about the best project. I'm not gonna argue with people on what the best project is. To me, Bitcoin is the best project. Right? So all I'm looking at is Bitcoin. I'm not trying to buy any other variant coins. I'm not against them. That's what people want to do. Knock yourself out. But I'm not doing nothing else but buying Bitcoin. Because like I said, I remember I got out of my car to go get some Chinese food because they serve brown rice at this Chinese place in Austell. And I remember that guy saying, crypto's $200, Bitcoin's $200, and it'd never get back up again. It had fallen down from like 300, whatever. And I heard that. And if I would have put $10,000 into crypto at that time, I'd be worth millions of dollars right now. Right? Millions. I would not be working. I'd be chilling somewhere on the island. They can have whatever kind of war they want to have. I wouldn't care. Right? So that's what I wanted to reiterate. I also missed the two. When it fell to $2,000, I missed that too in like 2017. I missed that too. But one of my biggest challenges with crypto was the ease of buying it. Now I can just buy crypto on my phone. Then once I get to a certain amount, I just push it over into a cold storage. But I can just accumulate on my phone now all day. So I got an alert. Once it hit a certain price, I buy. Once it hit a certain price, I buy. And I buy every so many days. Right? I buy crypto 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. Just keep accumulating. You look up, you have a certain amount. Then when it run up, you good. Then I just push that to a cold wallet. So that's what I'm doing now with crypto. So my Cash App stuff, I just use that to buy crypto. Right? That's going to be my crypto fund. Yeah, I do private consultations. So hit me up on Instagram at it'll be on the YouTube. It's like David _ it's like Diamond _ Dave or something like that on Instagram. It's Diamond Dave. But I do private consults. I appreciate it, man, but I'm just doing Bitcoin. I don't have time to do the research. I'm gonna just buy what I think is the best project, which is Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it. I don't have time to do. I be too much in the equities market. You know, so that's the thing. I'm too much focused on the equities market right now and trying to build infrastructure and stuff like that. I don't have time to become a crypto expert. I really don't. You know, so that's the issue. So I appreciate the comment. I'm just buying Bitcoin because, like I say, that's what I missed out on last time. I'm not going to do that this time. So as far as oil, think about whether the projects will be higher or lower because of oil energy inputs. Yeah, definitely. They can't get and deal with it because they got to get, that's who they're getting their gas from. Right. And so that's weird to me because, like I said, I didn't use gas until I moved to Georgia. I'm from Florida. Everything's electrical. I knew very few people even had gas. You go to Georgia, you cook on gas, you heat on gas. You do have electrical. But I didn't know that Atlanta was a gas city. I had no idea until I moved there. You know, so I didn't realize the importance of gas until I moved to Atlanta because where I'm from, everything is electrical. Because I'm out here in Texas, everything's electrical. So in Atlanta, you paying 2 gas bills. I'm paying Georgia Power, and then I'm also paying Scanner. So that's one of the downsides of living in Atlanta. You got to pay two power bills. Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, food already is bad. Lucky for me, I don't have expensive food tastes. Yeah, he did buy a lot of Bitcoin. But I just think, Katrina, the price, and look at the chart, I think the price was inflated from the gate. You know, I just think people overpaid with everything that seemed, quote unquote, techie during the pandemic. Everything got just overinflated. And what we're seeing is they're slowly but surely taking the air out of everything. I don't know. I don't know about Ukraine. They already took down a lot of the communications, though. Yeah, PayPal tank. But see, Chastity, we're in an era now where even because a lot of things are seen as overinflated, even with good earnings, things are tanking. Right? Because PayPal tanked hard. And the earnings really wasn't that bad. But the world we're in now, if your earnings are not like on a whole nother level, you're going to just sell off. Because Amazon, to me, had bad earnings, but they bought Amazon to save the market. Because this market would be even worse if Amazon would have sold off. Because with Facebook selling off and Amazon selling off, it would have destroyed this market. Then we roll into this war, this thing would have been over with. There people be out in the streets rioting. So they know what they got to do. Square like that Palantir chart. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Kathy Wood just sold out of Palantir. She just sold out. I'm going to see if she sells out of Zoom. Right? If Zoom tanks on her, it's going to look real bad on her. But, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, nobody want to mess up the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to mess up the athletes. Let them do what they do. You know, and then once they do what they do, because the Olympics supposed to be a non-political event anyway. Only one tried to politicize it was Hitler. But once they do what they do, then, you know, we get back to what we got to do. I feel you. See, I'm from Florida. Everything's electrical. Everything's electrical. I ain't know what. I know maybe 3 people in Florida, in Orlando, that had gas in their house. But everything was just electrical. So when I went to Atlanta, and you got to start cooking on gas, and then, you know, you got to, it's a lot to deal with because you got that whole thing inside your house. I didn't even know what that was. Right. And I was low key scared of gas because I would always, growing up, hear them stories about it'd be a gas leak and somebody light it and the whole thing blow up. Now, there's a lot of safeguards against that. But, you know, some of them older homes, especially in the major urban areas, be having gas leaks, man. The whole darn apartment complex blow up or the whole house blow up. Okay, good deal on the macroeconomic books. Yeah, I mean, but we still got opportunity to buy it now because I just think it goes higher. Because I said my analysis and just my own personal is that I think we're going to trade Satoshis. We're going to spend Satoshis and not Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's going to be too expensive. So we're going to trade using Satoshis, which is fractions of Bitcoin, as opposed to trading using a whole Bitcoin because nobody's going to be able to afford Bitcoin. Yeah, and one of the issues, Katrina, is that 2021 was such a great year for them. Everybody knows 2022 year-to-year comparable is not going to be as good. So they so everybody knows it's just not going to be as good. So I just think that's one of the biggest issues is that a lot of these companies have such great 2-year runs. There's no way to continue to build up off of that. And then a lot of it was just, it was so much of speculation, and I'm not against speculation, but there was really nothing from a business standpoint that was under it. Another company, if I could get options on this company, man, it'd be crazy. Let me type this in real quick. Is that it? MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy got the worst options chain. This is the most predictable company in the world to me. Right? This is the most predictable company in the world. Got one of the worst options chains in the world, though. That's the 1 year. Look at that. This is the 1 year. And I've been watching this company forever. Now, this was in November. This thing was $800. It's now trading at $365. Options chain is terrible. Right? This is another one, the company that he bought. He takes a lot of the company's money. He buys Bitcoin. The problem is he bought Bitcoin at the top with the company's capital. So as Bitcoin sells off, this company starts to lose value. But this options chain is just terrible on this company. Right? But this was one of the most predictable plays in the market. So a lot of times you can see a play, but the chain isn't there. That's why I think I got to learn how to short sell. Yeah, definitely. Wheat futures, yeah. Wheat is going up. So that's why the commodities game. So Julie, you might have to start going into futures trading, man. Because a lot of people told me I need to get into the futures market. So that's pretty much going to be the video. Appreciate everybody coming through. We had 1:30. So I just want to reiterate to people. Let's see where we at with the indexes real quick. So the NASDAQ is positive. Dow is negative. Dow is negative by a lot. S&P 0.7, Russell 2000 0.5. Crude oil is still up 0.472. Currencies 10-year bond is 1.92, which is not bad. Silver 0.8, gold 0.7. Let me go back to here. I would tell people, I wouldn't, currently in this market, I wouldn't trust any bull rallies. Right? I wouldn't trust it. Let's see how this thing rolls out. I think there's a lot of opportunity in this market for people that actually know how to trade. But if you don't really know how to trade live, I would just paper trade it. But I think there's a lot of volatility here because I don't think this situation is even close to being over. And I think it's going to create more instability, especially if it doesn't collapse real fast in the Ukraine. And even if it does collapse real fast in the Ukraine, where does this guy go next? Because the situation in the Ukraine can make him feel like he could just do that. So then does he try to do it, or does he start threatening the world with, because he already threatened the United States by telling them, you better not get involved in this. It was like a low-key threat, but he did threaten the U.S. Therefore, if this situation in Ukraine goes the way they want it to go, does he now feel like I just can do what I want to do in this part of the world? So then now you got a whole nother issue. And that's what I want people to be aware of. So I just believe that there's a lot of opportunity in this market currently. It's just you got to kind of know how to play it, and don't assume that just because the trend is going the way you want it to go, that means that's the way it's going to go. It's going to go the way it's going to go the way it's going to go. So just really manage. I would manage my risk really, really well. I would really know my entries and I would know my exits, and I would really know what I'm trading. I wouldn't take any guesses right now. Right? I'm already positioned in the market, so I'm looking to exit out of certain plays if that's going to be the play. And I'm also going to take some entries probably on some intraday stuff. But I know exactly what I'm looking for. Because right now, I don't believe any bullishness until it becomes extended. Because what I'm seeing is that I'm seeing selling over long periods of time. We're not seeing collapses like we saw in 2020. We're just seeing extended selling. So you may have 2 or 3 green days in there, then they sell back down again, then you get 2 or 3 green days, and it's just extended selling. Right? So every time somebody buys into it, it gets sold off again. That's what I'm seeing in the market. So 2 or 3 green days don't move me. Right? I'm looking for a lot of these companies to continue to sell off. I think we'll be done with this by the end of maybe this quarter. They'll have reset everything, and then we can use it as maybe a foundation to build up, except the companies that are really, really weak or have major issues with debt, things of that nature, like Royal Caribbean, also like Carnival Cruise Lines, also like Carvana, also like Affirm. Let me look at Affirm real quick before we get up on out of here. I got out of that trade in the 40s, so it's green at 36.24. But if you look at where it's falling from, yeah, so I got out in the 40s. So this thing was 150 at one time. So that's what you're saying. So now, so it's well under its IPO price. Yeah, this thing is pretty much done. So it'll people now, it'll start attracting discount shoppers. But me personally, I wouldn't buy this deal if I wasn't going to stay in it for 5 years. But I wouldn't buy it at 36, trying to get out at 50. I wouldn't waste my time with it. I think it's going to be too much of a struggle. But that's just my personal opinion. That's me. Right? But this thing is just totally collapsed. Okay? And it didn't take one day for it to happen. It just gradually sold off. Just real gradual. Every day they just take. So you think it's recovering and it sells again. You think it's stabilizing and it sells again. And they just did it until they finally just collapse it. So that's what I want to have people be wary of. But there's a lot of opportunity in this market if you kind of know how to find it. And so that's something I wanted to talk about. So I appreciate everybody coming through. I really appreciate everybody with the super chats. Appreciate everybody with the cash apps. If you got any questions, hit me up in the comments. Hit me up in the Discord. Watch that VIX. Be careful of that VIX. Understand what you're paying to get into these particular deals. And just make sure that you manage your risk. It's going to be David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. Talk to you later.